Joe, but that went tits up before we started. We spent 5 minutes trying to get his audio working, but we couldn't get it working. Not Drew's fault. It's my end. I could hear him fine, but everyone else couldn't. And then I stopped streaming for some bizarre reason. I don't know why that happened, but yeah, I'm back now. If anyone is out there and wants to send a message to let me know that they can see me and they can hear me, that would be really helpful right now, because I think I'm going to have a bit of a breakdown. Yes, Sally! Sally, how you doing, Sally? Thank you. Woo! Found you. Yes. Sorry, I've been quite elusive this morning. Oh my God. It's like 12 minutes over. I feel so unprofessional. I think when I was doing the Hughes at 10 and I did it every single night for 31 nights in a row, I didn't have any technical gremlins. That meant that I couldn't actually see anyone for the first 10 minutes of the show. So this is the first for me, although we were trying something new. We were trying to bring other people into the HughesRound studio virtually, which I still want to do, because obviously I want to have conversations live with people and you'll be able to throw us questions. Can see and hear you, Graham. Thank you, Denise. And hi, Chris. And hi, Malik. Thank you for joining me on this Monday, the 28th of December. It's nearly over. 2020, the end of quite possibly the worst year ever in Britain. I know there have been worse years around the world, other points in history, and I suppose 1666 was quite a bad year. You know, we had plague, we had a great fire. Other than that, I can't remember a time when Britain in history decided to just self-immolate, just like take itself out for no good or well adequately explained reason. Maybe you are making us wait on purpose like Bojo. No, Chris, no, absolutely not. Leon King is saying, I can't see you. That's no good at all. He's on YouTube. YouTube. I've got 21 viewers on YouTube. I think I should be coming out on YouTube. I should be coming through your YouTubes. I'm just going to check on that, make sure. If you just refresh maybe the your browser window, you might be all right. Let's have a look. Yeah, I seem to be coming through. On YouTube. Yeah, I think just we're having a bit of a nightmare today. It's Monday. You know, back to the grind. YouTube okay for me. Oh, Chris says I am joking. What? What are you joking about? What? Oh, right, about Boris, making you wait like Boris, yeah. No, Boris Johnson learnt that trick from Vladimir Putin, and also Trump does it as well. They'll schedule a meeting and they'll turn up late as a bit of a power play because they like making people wait for them. It feeds their ego. But no, I was desperately trying to get things to damn well work. After I managed to not sort things out with Drew, I tried to go online and it wouldn't let me get back online for some reason. I can see you on YouTube, says Jen. Yes, very good. And the Browns say, I can see you on YouTube as well. Yes. So today I'm going to discuss a little bit more about the Brexit deal. First of all, I want to say something about Trump, though. He signed the stimulus package after spending the weekend golfing instead, and thereby depriving millions of Americans of the money that they should have got. Because he's an arse and he doesn't care about anyone but himself. How many times does he have... Well, how many things does he have to do to make this absolutely clear? But I was reading a piece by Robert Reich yesterday, and it kind of upset me a bit because it did say that Trump will probably just get away with everything because he's rich, and the rich get away with everything. And that is the problem, really, isn't it? If you've got the money, the law doesn't matter. You know, you got the money, Lord Lucan, you can kill your kid's nanny, and then you can just run away and live the life of Riley in Malawi or wherever the fuck he was, wherever the hell he was. You can get away with it. You can get away with murder. There was a good piece as well today by Fintan O'Toole, which I thought was quite interesting. And to those who say that the EU won't want us back after the way we've behaved, he gives an EU perspective on it, and he says it's a bit like looking at a reasonable marriage, and then because it's had a messy divorce, you concentrate on the divorce rather than the actual fairly happy marriage that we had. He makes some good points, but I do think that the Rejoin campaign, while it can be very just one direction, which is rejoin. I do think that there are steps that are going to have to be taken before we're ready to rejoin as a country. I don't think we're anywhere near ready yet. We need to improve our democracy. We need to improve our meritocracy. We need to improve our communication with people. We need to improve our media. There's a lot of things that need to be done in the next few years until England. I'm going to exclude Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales from this because I don't think they're caught up quite so much in this absolute maniacal fixation with the past, with World War II. It's like, why can't it be like the days of World War II when we had bombs dropped on us and young men went off to war and never came back? Yeah. And I do feel like that is something that needs to be addressed quite urgently before we can move on. I've got Phil Spicer saying, hi everyone. Hi Phil. Got Pekla saying, my last beer shipment before Brexit just arrived from Vocation Brewery, end of an era. So is that stopped now? There's no, I mean, is there more stuff coming through? It's just a little bit more expensive because of the extra paperwork that's required to bring stuff in and out of the country now. Not impressed with Starmer's decision to vote for the deal. Apparently some of the front bench aren't happy. Chris, I'm not happy with it either. I said last night that he should abstain. The European... Chuck's saying the European... is that the Court of Human Rights or is it the European... what is it called? The Charter of Human Rights. Is it Charter? But yeah, one of the many things that Britain has lied about to its neighbours, one of which is obviously Erasmus. Well, lied to us about Erasmus, but also in Theresa May's political declaration, she made it very clear that they wanted more like to have deep security ties, which would keep us safe from extremism, terrorism, and also possibly Russian interference in our democracy. But obviously our terrorists and our lunatics and our Russian sympathisers in government don't want that. So what they're doing instead is they're moving away from it. They lied. They just backheeled that part of the political declaration, and now they want to go their own way. I mean, that would be mad enough on its own, but the fact that we're also NATO allies with 21 of the countries of the EU, so all but 6 of our NATO allies. And that is a bit nuts to say, well, we're not going to share this information with them. We're not going to share this intelligence, which could help save lives, because ideology is worth more than your life or my life or your children's lives, as we know from the Conservatives. Starmer made a mistake. Simple. Why would you vote for a deal before you've seen the details, and especially presented from a man who's a known liar and threatened to violate the withdrawal agreement? That's from Alexander there. Yeah, you're absolutely right, mate. I don't think Starmer is playing a blinder here. I think he's pissing off everyone who wants to rejoin, which is half the country. And he's I think he's digging his grave, his political grave, for later on, because this is going to come back and bite him on the ass, the same way that Corbyn's unfathomable decision to activate Article 50 without any safeguards, provisos, amendments, or anything, giving all that power to the Conservative Party is just abhorrent. I mean, why would you do that? So yeah, I think this is going to be a huge disappointment to a lot of us who hope that Starmer would be a bit more sensible in this respect, and he seems to be quite. He comes across as quite sensible because he's quite dull, but also at the same time, I don't think he's got the right idea on this. But I think that politicians more than ever before are driven by sort of this ideology that we're better off without our neighbours, which is, it's just nuts. It goes against everything that I stand for as a socialist, as someone who believes in society and believes that we should all work together to make things better for everybody. The Mario Kart analogy, where if you're doing badly at Mario Kart, you get better stuff. You get like a blue shell or a bullet bill. you don't get that if you're first. Whereas in Britain, we've got a situation where literally you're born in pole position and you tear ahead, and then you get all these amazing items, and the rest of the pack, we don't stand a chance. We do not stand a chance being able to catch up or being able to do anything about it, which I think is not great. And obviously, I feel like Starmer should be saying more about this and pointing it out more, because people don't notice stuff until you point it out to them. And this goes for me as well. I'm not immune to this. I didn't know bugger all about the EU until we voted to leave the damn thing, and I was like, okay, I need to learn something about this. I didn't get to the point of like actually googling what is the EU. I knew what it was. I knew that leaving would be a bad idea. I wrote an essay about why leaving would be a bad idea before the referendum. I knew that I was going to come home from Panama to actually vote to remain in the EU. The learning curve over the last few years over what the EU actually is has been immense for me. The Browns say trade and may be and tariff quota free, but no guidance on customs duty VAT yet. Right, okay, man. Been using Thomas Fawcett malt in 20 years, ending of a relationship with the producer. That's from Christian. I'm so sorry. Alexander says, rejoin needs to be in steps, joining the single market or customs union. I don't know about that, because I feel like if we dilute the message by saying we want this and then this and then this and then we rejoin, I think that's for the politicians to sort of work out how to give us what we want. But I think the message from our point of view as just Joe Blogs on the street is to say we want to rejoin the EU. Things were better when we were in the EU. Tap in to the nostalgia that the Brexiteers feel about the 1950s and the 1970s, depending on which end of the political spectrum they're from, or the Victorian era if they're Jacob Rees-Mogg. And you do the same thing. You say, wasn't life great in the 90s? You know, we had all this great music, really, really good films came out. They weren't all sequels. They weren't all necessarily made by, all the good ones weren't necessarily made by Pixar. And what a great time to be alive, eh? God, don't you want to go back to those days when we were in the EU? I think you're right. There could be an incremental moving back towards the EU over time. But I think as far as what I would like to see over the next couple of years is a rejoin movement. So you join the rejoin movement, and like I said last night, the 3-word slogan is rejoin, rejoin, rejoin. Really simple. Get your head around it. What is like Dick Dastardly? UK is like Dick Dastardly. It is really, really trying to cheat its way to winning, and eventually just coming a cropper and just seeing Captain Caveman going ahead and winning the race. Jen Lewis says, instead of leading and explaining what is actually going on. Yeah, that's true. Graham Hughes, will your next year local elections, do you think it'll be delayed to later in the year or 2022? That's from Donald. I don't know. I mean, it might be delayed. I don't think anyone's going to object to it being delayed. I don't know if it'll have to be, though, because I'm assuming it's not going to be till May. It's normally around that time of year, isn't it? Someone could tell me the exact date. But I think by then, hopefully, we'll have enough vaccines out. They're trying to speed up the vaccine rollout because obviously this new variant of COVID is a lot more transmissible, and as a result, we're seeing more deaths. So we need to get that vaccine out as soon as humanly possible. This is from Nick. This deal is a bad deal, but no deal would be criminal. I initially wanted Labour to abstain, but I don't think they can. Rock and hard place comes to mind. We can at least build a slim deal. Nick, I think you're right. I think you're right. If the ERG say they're going to vote against it, then Starmer can stand up and say, we don't want to vote for this, but we're going to because no deal is so bad, and explain why no deal is so bad. And then use the opportunity to explain that the bastard liars who lie through their teeth, like Boris Johnson and Cummings and Gove and Rees-Mogg, who all said no deal is better than a bad deal, you can blow them up and say, obviously no deal wasn't better than a bad deal because they've got this bad deal instead. Bad pizza, what's worse, no pizza or bad pizza? The SNP is voting against the deal. Every local authority in Scotland voted to remain. Why aren't Labour MPs voting the way their constituents voted in 2016? They are betraying them. That's a good point, Marza. The way that I don't think that they need to. I don't think that they need to get to vote with the Conservatives to get this through. So either abstain, whip to abstain, or just a free vote, and then Labour MPs who feel strongly against this deal can vote against it. But I wouldn't really want to see Labour politicians following the ERG into the division lobby like they did the activation of Article 50, which really pissed me off. I don't want to see that again. I don't want to see that. So I'd rather they abstain. It's going to go through anyway. But I think if in this week we see the ERG kicking off and saying, "Oh, this isn't the deal we want. This isn't the Brexit we voted for," etc. I think that will come to. I think that's where Labour really need to step up, but they don't need to. I don't think the ERG sound like they're doing it. Like Starmer, I just don't think he's made a good decision. Will make it harder for him to criticise the deal in the future. Yeah, Chris, you're absolutely right. Broadly speaking, England has been grooved into thinking that conservatism is the default position. The word conservative implies it's sensible and traditional. These are virtues, right? Depressing. Yeah, that's from Paul. I like Starmer too, but he needs to work on explaining what he's doing. The Different Bias video is good on it. SNP will vote against. So that's a video there. There's a link there in the description. Here. That's the Phil Morehouse's video on it, and it's very good. I really recommend it. I recommend everything that Phil does. He's very, very good. We'll see how EU travel works. I am due to head to Madeira at the end of January. That's if I can leave the country due to COVID-19. Yeah, Alexander, you might have trouble doing that. The Feckle Puny says, "Hi there." Hi! Brexiteers will find out what it means to have bureaucracy now. Yes, the dude. I mean, I'll pull rank, as I sometimes do. As the only person to have visited every country in the world without flying, I obviously had a lot of bureaucracy behind the scenes. I didn't really blog about it. I didn't film myself filling out endless forms. But I'll give you an example of the kind of idiotic bureaucracy that I had to put up with while I was traveling. Every time I went out of Indonesia and back into Indonesia, I had to get a new visa for Indonesia. Usually you can get them on the border, which is fine. So I went to Singapore, then I went to Palau Batam, which is just off the coast of Singapore, which is actually part of Indonesia. And then I took a ship over to Java. I went to Jakarta. And then I travelled all the way down to, first of all, I went to Borneo and over to Sarawak, Brunei, and up to the Philippines. Came back. And when I came back, I just got another visa in my passport at the border. You pay like $15 or something. But when I went to East Timor, because obviously East Timor and Indonesia were at war until the 90s, while I was there, I actually met Jose Ramos Horta, who was the guy who won the Nobel Peace Prize, and he's the guy who basically secured the independence of East Timor. Anyway, get off the subject a little bit, but I went back. I wanted to go back into West Timor, which is part of Indonesia, but they weren't issuing visas on the border at the time, so you had to get a visa before you went to the border, and you could get a visa in Dili, the capital of East Timor, but it requires you to jump through all these hoops. And one of the things was you didn't need a letter of invitation, like some of the countries I went to, like Angola, I needed a letter of invitation. Saudi Arabia, I needed a letter of invitation. I think I needed one for Turkmenistan, a few other places. I didn't need the letter of invitation, which was good, but I had to fill out a huge big form and it just asked me everything about my life. And it was very different to what I had to do just coming into Indonesia from the Philippines, coming in and out from Brunei, or coming in from Singapore. Anyway, so I fill out this form and I present my 2 passport photos. Yeah, 2 passport photos. And they went, "No, you can't have these. These are invalid." And I went, "Well, why?" "Because they've got to have a red background." I'm like, "What? They've got to have a red background. You can't have a white background. It's got to have a red background to your picture." So I'm like, what the hell? So I honestly spent the next 4 hours traveling around Delhi in the sweltering heat, trying to find somewhere that would take a photo of me, because there were no photo booths or anything like that. It wasn't like, London. where you just sit in a photo booth and get your photo taken. So I finally find somewhere that does photos, and they actually had in the back room where they came to take a photo, they had a bit of pink cardboard stuck to the wall specifically for visa application photos that had to have a red background. So then it cuts. I had to pay for it. I got to get back in a taxi, drive back to the embassy. Here you go. Honestly, I could have just filled in the pictures that I had a white background. I could have just filled them in with a pink felt tip pen. It would have had the same effect and they would have accepted it. That's bureaucracy for you. Love it. Let's have more of that. Insane. Bioberg says, morning. Good thing Brexit will contribute to my post-Xmas weight loss plan. It should go quicker when certain food groups won't be available on the shelves for a while. Yeah, that could definitely happen. I mean, there's going to be hold-ups at the port, that's for sure. I don't think we're going to see the same price hikes that we would see if we went for a no deal, because obviously there's going to be no tariffs on food coming into the country as yet. However, you've got to bear in mind that the supermarkets have been putting up prices consistently over the last couple of years, only by, a penny every couple of months, but it all adds up. So your weekly shop now is more expensive than your weekly shop was just a couple of years ago. And also because of the drop in the value of the pound as a result of Brexit and all these Brexit shenanigans, the pound has lost 20% of its value overall. So, things are more expensive. But people won't notice it as much because you're not going to get that cliff edge. So I think it's up to all of us in the Rejoin community to point it out to people and go, yeah, well, this is what your shop cost back then. This is what it costs now. And that's not inflation. That is just Brexit. Brexit cost you a lot of money. We have 66.6 million people in this country. 66.5 million of them are going to be worse off because of Brexit. The 0.1% that's left, the 100,000 that's left of millionaires and billionaires, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. But the rest of us, we're in trouble. Alexander Campbell says, another default position is that Tories were good for the economy. The myth needs to be put to bed, combined with extra paperwork and costs. Truck drivers still don't have adequate Portaloos. Great example. Yeah, the Tories have wrecked everything. They're supposed to be conservatives. They're supposed to keep things the same. And they've changed everything, but not for the better. They've made it worse. Christian says, I just remember that Brits are now at the mercy of the traditional and flexible French border authorities. Yeah, can't wait. This is another thing that Brexiteers don't seem to understand. They don't understand that a border isn't a country's border. Every border is 50% someone else's. You have your border, you have a bit of no man's land, and then you have the other person's border. And they can do what the hell they like. They can open it, they can close it, they can say, oh, we're only going to work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and the rest of the time we're going to close. They can make it so things only come out and nothing comes in. They can do that if they want. We can't stop them. And because of the situation now where we have just spent the last 4.5 years slagging off, insulting, demeaning our neighbours, our friends, our NATO allies. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to think what might happen next. Malik says, if they vote against, they get attacked. You voted for no deal. If they abstain, you get hit with, you wouldn't even take a position on the most important vote of our lifetime, etc. Yeah, I mean, you've got a bit of a point there, Malik. Yeah, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, because Boris Johnson has engineered this quite sensibly, I guess. I mean, from his point of view, it's sensible, where there's not enough time for parliamentary scrutiny, so that the ERG can't really kick off a fuss about it, and it has to be done before Friday. However, the EU Parliament doesn't have to ratify it till the 28th of February, so I don't understand why we're rushing it through. Well, I do understand why we're rushing it through, because it's a terrible, terrible deal, and Boris Johnson is hoping to just rush it through before the idiots in the ERG and all that group get a chance to suss out that it's a terrible, terrible deal. Just watch your painful debate with Andre Walker. What a shouty tabloid twit he is. That's putting it mildly, Freckle Puny. Yeah, Andre Walker is a bit of an embarrassment to Britain. And I did a debate with him. He just lies. And he does this gish gallop, where you just tell a lot of lies very quickly. And it becomes very hard if you're trying to respond to pick up every lie that they've told. So a few lies will obviously fall through the gaps. And you've only got a set amount of time to talk about this stuff. But well-trained Brexiteer. He's been well-trained in how to do this kind of thing and how to conduct interviews and come across like he's got something intelligent to say when he absolutely has nothing intelligent to say whatsoever. We need herd immunity against the Tories. Herd immunity only works when you have a vaccine. So the idea that we were going to have herd immunity back in March is just laughable. And now, because of the government's shit handling of the COVID crisis, more people got it. More people got it in this country than most other countries, right? And the more people get it, the more likely it is to mutate. And it's mutated in this country. What a surprise. Isn't Bojo screwing over his donors in the city by making the deal and not including services and finance? Christian, I don't think he has that many donors in the city, does he? I think that mostly his money is from, his family estate and his chums from school and Russia. Simon says, Simon says, everyone's got to do this. Simon says, so we have lost our privileges to drive, travel, study, work, buy property, start a business, participate in politics and retire to anywhere in the EU, effectively becoming second-class Europeans. Yes, Simon, we have. I've had my EU citizenship taken from me. I've had it stolen from me by a bunch of privately educated toffs who, wouldn't piss on you if you're on fire. And these people are just everywhere. They're everywhere in the media. They're everywhere in politics. They're everywhere in life in the UK. You look at the top actors in the country. Nearly all of them are privately educated. They all went to posh schools. That's why every acting role for a British person is always someone who's posh. Usually someone who's posh and a psychopath, which is interesting. I mean, I think it says something about the British character there. But we do play a lot of our fair share of bad guys. But yeah, RADA is overrun by posh kids who can go into acting because if they fail, it doesn't matter. And that is what being born into wealth gives you. It gives you the opportunity to do what you like with your life. Because if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. Whereas for the rest of us, if you try something and it doesn't work, you're screwed. I mean, you're back at your mum's or worse, on the streets. They don't have to worry about that. They never have to worry about that. So, yeah. But with the EU citizenship that we've lost, don't forget, in a few years' time, we're going to lose our UK citizenship as well. Our British citizenship is going to be taken from us. And we will be citizens of England and Wales or Wangland or whatever comes next to this nation. I mean, it might be Northern England, the Republic of Northern England. Who knows? It needs to be agreed between both parties provisionally. Oh, okay, Tom. All right, good. All right, I didn't get that that we had to agree to it provisionally. Alexander Campbell, but Johnson also rushed through the WA and also tried to violate it within a year of being signed. Who is to say he or an ARG member won't change their mind further down the line? Well, Alexander, I think there's stuff in the trade deal that basically deals with that fact and says if you decide to violate this agreement or you go off your own way with any given commodity, then we reserve the right to slap tariffs on stuff. They have to give us warning, 45-day warning, I think. And then, yeah, it's tariff slapping time. And don't forget, tariffs are essentially sanctions. When you put sanctions against the country, it's exactly the same as a tariff. It's like, yeah, we will buy your oil, but it's going to cost us 10 times as much to buy. Oh, well, okay, well, we won't buy it from you anymore. So we cripple them financially because they can't sell stuff. And again, I made this point last night. The idea that because we buy more stuff than we sell to the EU, we're in a stronger position is as mad as thinking, I've got a business, I just buy things. I don't sell anything, I just buy things and thinking that the business is going to be viable. It's not. You need to sell things. You need to sell things to make money. It's really basic. I'm amazed how many people don't seem to realise this. I'm struggling to forgive the 17.4 million morons who voted to leave. Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that I always think of the sort of 17.4 million is you looked around at the time of who was on your team and who was on our team. Well, it was David Attenborough, it was Brian Cox, it was the entire scientific establishment pretty much. It was people I liked, people who I respected. unfortunately, it was led by someone, the Remain movement at the time was led by someone who I had no time for at all, which was David Cameron. Which is why people thought they were sticking it to the man by voting for David Cameron. Voting for Brexit, because they were voting against David Cameron, weren't they? A lot of people on the left thought, yeah, we're going to stick it to the establishment by voting for what the other team wanted to do. Now, the other team was Nigel Farage, the bollocks-faced foghorn of ignorance, Boris Johnson, the allegedly wife-beating, the guy who gave an address to someone, for a journalist to be beaten up, the guy who lied his way out of the cabinet. He was chucked out of the shadow cabinet in the early 2000s for lying. He lied to his editors, he lied to his wives, he lied to his mistresses. Nobody knows how many children he's got. I don't want him on my team. I didn't want Cameron on my team, but Boris Johnson is a fellow Etonian, but even worse. He is the epitome of the stupidity behind the British class system. I mean, that is it. That is, we get an absolute moron in charge and half the country worship him because he's posh. And that's the problem. And until we address that and recognise that fact. But who else was on the team? Vladimir Putin wanted us to leave the EU. Donald Trump wanted us to leave the EU. These are not our friends. These are not people with Britain's best interests at heart. Every Nazi in the country wanted us to leave the EU. Every racist in the country, every xenophobe. I did not want to be on that team. Despite Cameron being on our team, I didn't want to be on a team with all of the racists, all of the xenophobes, and all of the people who just go out and lie left, right, and centre. And even though I admit I didn't know as much about the EU then as I know now, I was still adamant that, like, just by looking around and seeing who was on my side, when we had marches to remain in the EU, the people there were lovely. There was never any hassle. There were never fights. There was never brawls. No one attacked the police with bottles. Every time the Brexit lot went out, they caused trouble. They fought with the police. There were arrests. That tells you everything to me. So yeah, it's not just that they were lied to and that they supported something that was innately bad for our country and bad for our children and bad for our future. It's that they looked around and went, Farage, Johnson, Gove, Rees-Mogg, Claire Fox, Richard Tice, Daniel Hannan. Yeah, these are the people for me. The Sun newspaper, the Mail, the Express, the Telegraph. Yeah, I want to be on their side on this debate. So any Scouser who actually looked at the situation at the time and thought, I want to be on the same side of this argument as the Sun newspaper, needs to give their head a wobble. Seriously, like, what are you thinking? Why would you want to be on that team? Why would you want anything to do with that team? And that was my attitude towards it. So it wasn't just about knowing the politics and being lied to and all this kind of stuff. It was about who's on your side. And that's become more prevalent in the last few years with the footballification of politics. But I like my team. I like the people that I meet at marches and rallies and Remain events. I like everyone who's leaving these messages here, as long as no one no trolls have come on board since I haven't been looking. But yeah, I feel like that is something that I really struggle with. And the other thing I really struggle with is, especially with friends and family who voted to leave, is that they know me. They either grew up with me or have known me since birth. They know I've got a degree in history and politics from Manchester University. They know I was one of only 3 lads to get an A in my A-levels of politics and government from Bluecoat in Liverpool, one of the best schools in Liverpool. Actually, the best school in Liverpool. Not private, though. Make that very clear. But also, I've been to every country in the world. So I'm more well-travelled than anybody that they know. And they chose to listen to Nigel Farage over me. They think that Nigel Farage knows more about this stuff than me. They think that some guy who they don't even know, who wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire, they think that he has their interests at heart more than I do. And I think that is a hurt that will never go away, because a lot of them are still adamant that they made the right decision in listening to Nigel Farage. And they say, Well, Graham, you might have a degree in history and politics, and you might have been to every country in the world without flying, which no other human being on this entire planet has ever done. But what you don't realise is, insert headline from the Mail here. So that I find difficult to get over. But do we have to? Do we have to get over it? Do we have to forgive and forget? I don't think we do. I mean, when you are running an election, you don't win by changing people's minds. It's very, very difficult to get people to change their minds about anything, especially something that they've been told is bad for a long time. EU is bad, EU bad, EU bad. And to get them to suddenly turn around and have this road to Damascus moment and going, oh yeah, actually, no, I think the EU's good now. Okay, it'll happen now and again, but you're talking about 1 in 1,000 chance of being able to persuade someone, especially if you're not having a one-to-one with them. So yeah, the way you win elections is you get your people out. You get your side out. You get your side active and campaigning and delivering leaflets and going on marches and going on rallies and keeping themselves in the public eye. So this idea, Black Lives Matter, the Extinction Rebellion, rejoin the EU, becomes part of the national conversation. Whether it's good or bad, I don't care if the Mail slags us off, because of course it's going to slag us off as long as it notices that we're there. That's the point. Chubai says they didn't like the president of the free world being on our side, but changed their little minds with Trump. Yeah, that's true. Paul Mason, my thoughts precisely. Oh, sorry, I've lost your message there. I ditched a friend of 40 years because he looked around and decided to align with Rees-Mogg. Yeah, go Farage et al. Brexiters are far too many in the UK and are like Basil Fawlty, Rupert Rigsby or Alf Garnett. Hang on, is it Rupert? Is Rigby's first name Rupert? Oh my God, I've learned something today. Rigby from Rising Damp, then a Rossiter. That they suck up to those they consider to be their betters and screw them over in a flash. Yeah, absolutely. It's that idea of trying to suck up to the alpha male. It's usually a male, and it's a bit cringy. It's a bit cringy to me, and I don't know. I don't understand why you would place someone you don't know on a pedestal above your friends and family, above people that you know in your circle, who actually, they don't just have an opinion on it, they have an informed opinion, and the best, most informed opinion that you are likely to find in your social sphere, or even in your public sphere as well, because they're not talking to you. They're not thinking about how this is going to affect you as an individual. They're thinking about how it's going to affect their bank balance for the better when they don't have to pay so much tax because we're at the EU. Hurrah. Yeah. Are you going to do super chats? Super chats? I don't even know what super chats are. Tell me more. That's from Simon. Jimmy says, sorry, Simon Cart, not Jimmy. Simon Cart, and then Jimmy Shadden says, America wishes to congratulate the EU for a brilliant Brexit deal, and for you Brits, would like to leave you with a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. Yeah, indeed. Well, it's better to be, as Truman said, it's better to be inside the tent pissing out than outside the tent pissing in. Voting and supporting Brexit enable them to release their inner bigot. Release the inner bigot. No, Ian, democracy is not a single vote on a singular topic in the given point of time. It's a continual process, which includes debate, scrutiny, agreement, and yes, disagreement. Well, yeah, that's democracy. If we have a rule that says we made the decision at one point and we can never revisit it or go back and consider whether it was a good or bad idea after the event, then that is dictatorship. That's Soviet Union style autocracy. I'm not interested in that. I'm also not interested in this chumocracy because I you know, maybe I'm just being selfish. Maybe I'm just thinking, well, as part of the 93% of the population that wasn't privately educated, I'm getting a bit pissed off with only having 1% of the power. I'm getting a bit annoyed that all of these commentators in the newspapers, all these politicians and the actors and the top judges in the country and the people who go to the top universities overwhelmingly come from private backgrounds, privately educated backgrounds. And I think that is a problem that we need to address if we are going to progress as a nation. If you don't want to progress as a nation, if you want to go back to the way it was in some fictional, idealized vision of the past, then fine. That's your MO. But I don't want my children to be dragged back into that world. It's not what I want. Lies are so difficult to fight because lies can change to suit any situation while the truth is immutable. That's from Ernie. Yeah, a lie gets around the world, doesn't it, before the truth has got his pants on. I think that's very true. And one of the things that I feel like we don't do ourselves any favours in the old Remain community and now the Rejoin community if we see something that we read on Twitter, and the first thing we think is like, let's pick a hole in this argument when it's someone on our side. I'd rather you send them with me, I'd rather you sent me a PM, and I do try and follow everyone who follows me on Twitter, send me a PM and say, Graham, you got this wrong, and then I can amend it or delete it or whatever. But people have this thing of like, I found a hole in your argument. I'm like, yeah, but we're on the same side. I'm not saying to be devious about it, but like, seriously, this is not the time to be pedantic about things that don't really matter. If you've got a good headline and it's working and people are sharing this idea that leaving the EU is a bad thing, I don't think it's so bad if something isn't quite right. I like to be as accurate as humanly possible. I just prefer people message me privately so I can amend it. If it's on Facebook, I can just edit it so it's right, rather than pronounce my intelligence online. I've caught you out, you tricky bugger. If it's on the other side, do one for your life. Call it democracy if you like, but it's corruption. That's from John. It is just plain and simple corruption. That's why £19 billion was spent on a track and trace system that doesn't work. Chancellor says this is a great unifying moment for the nation. We have never been so divided as a nation. Well, yeah, Tim, you're absolutely right. 62% of people in Scotland voted to stay in the EU, and they are now going to leave they're now going to leave the UK because the EU offers them a better deal for trade. It's as simple as that. Rigby, a slum landlord who believed it made him a Tory. Yeah, good point there. Gaz says, as the great Judge Carlin said, it's a big club and we aren't in it. Yeah, Judge Carlin, one of my favourite stand-up comedians. Very, very, very funny man. If you ever get a chance, maybe after this, type in George Carlin, 10 Commandments. It's very good. Sulaf says, the lesson we need to learn from Brexit is what in the education system produces voters like that. Well, Sulaf, I don't really blame the education system so much, just because the majority of people under the age of 50 voted to remain. If it was a problem with education, I've no doubt that it might have been. It was a problem that people over the age of 50 are much more likely, well, very, very much more likely now that school is compulsory till the age of 18, to have left school at 14 with no qualifications. It almost becomes a badge of honour for older Gamini types who say, oh, I left school with no qualifications at the age of 14, and then I had an apprenticeship and I learned how to hit things with a hammer, and now look at me, I own a mansion. And it's like, you had a lot of luck. Your generation had a lot of luck. The house prices are not going to increase tenfold again. It's never going to happen again. That was a specific thing that happened, from the beginning of the 80s to sort of, midway through the noughties, and that's just never going to happen again. And the other benefits that they had was that they saw things improve immeasurably in their lifetime, whereas children now are going to see their lives either maybe not get worse so much, but not get as better as it should. If we had decided not to, sack off our best, friendliest trading relations with our nearest partners. But yeah, I do think that there's, I do think that there's a lot of people out there who, will never, ever be convinced. They'll never be convinced one way or the other. And I don't think that changing the education system now will have a demonstrable effect on that. One of the big things as well, when it comes to the Brexit vote, one of the biggest differentials was people who with a degree versus people who left school with no qualifications. People with a degree overwhelmingly voted to remain in the EU. It was like 80% or something even higher than that. Whereas people who left school with no qualifications at all overwhelmingly voted for Brexit. And since the 2000s, there's been a concerted effort to get 50% of young people into university. And that target was met last year. So more people are going to university. I don't think the education system is the first thing we need to take down. Well, let me just stop there. We need to get rid of the private schools. I'm sorry, we need to get rid of them. Forget about just getting rid of their tax status or whatever. Maybe that can be the first step, but they need to be gotten rid of because they're not fair. They're not fair. If you can opt out of social education, then you don't care about social education. It has no effect on your life whatsoever, and that is not fair. So yeah, I think if we're going to reform the education system, we have to start there, and then we can start talking about, I don't know, not making everyone do exams at the age of 2. Wayne in Basildon says, "Hello, mate. Hope you had a decent Christmas." Hello, Wayne. Merry Christmas to you all. National Federation of Fishing spokesman pro-Brexit was on Radio 4 this morning, explaining how the new deal is worse than what they had in the EU. Does not expect many fishermen to remain in the business long enough for the changes to be felt. Fish. And we don't even have that. My lovely dad, long free marketeer, also believes anti-EU stories. I was similar. What convinced me remain last minute was a business case. Now see all advantages. Climate nullifies laissez-faire. Yeah, it's completely true. I think the dialogue about the EU was incredibly one-sided for 20 years. And the EU was just blamed for like crazy random stuff that they weren't letting us do. They weren't letting us sell beer in pints. That never happened. There was never a day in the United Kingdom where you couldn't go into a pub and buy a pint. It was just a myth made up by these lunatics who were like, oh, we can't buy in pounds and ounces. Well, actually you could, but it needed to be converted into metric if you're going to label it so it could be sold anywhere in the single market, because that's the whole point of the single market. You put one label on your product and it can be sold in any other territories in the single market. We won't have that anymore. University narrows one's thinking. I don't think so. Christian says that the country must feel like a scene from Hunt for Red October, where Tubalov removed the safety from the torpedoes and they turn on him in the second in command and says, "You arrogant ass, you killed us." Yep. Way to go, Graham from Florida. Yay, hi. Got Josephine here saying, "I spent 8 years trying to warn people." Yeah, get rid of private school. Yeah. Get rid of private schools, says Simon. I think they're the first. They're going to have to go once the rejoin revolution happens. It's going to get worse. It has been since the 2008 crash. People gave power to employers to keep their jobs. Employers, unrestrained, just took more and more. Yeah. The fact that no one was brought to book for the 2018 crash, the 2008 crash. No one was found culpable. No one went to jail. Not a single person went to jail. Sula says there's a problem in education. Consider all the science deniers, Brexiteers, conspiracy theorists, flat earthers. They seem connected to me. Yeah, I don't think that you're taught that in school, though. I think that maybe the education system in the United Kingdom, I don't doubt it could be better, but I do think that all my friends who are teachers do a damn good job under difficult circumstances, and I think that a lot of people who had to homeschool earlier in the year now appreciate how difficult a job being a teacher really is. So kudos to them. But also, I think that there's that sort of attitude, the flat earthism, the climate change denialism. There is a majority of people who have those opinions who are not well educated. And so that's not the education systems per se, as in like what's being taught, because there are people who go through the education system like I did and learn a lot more and I hold completely different political opinions than what my dad did, for instance, which is unusual. Back in the day, most kids would follow their parents. So if their parents were Conservatives, they'll be Conservative. If their parents were Labour, they would be Labour. It's as simple as that. The idea of changing, having an intergenerational change from one end of the political spectrum to the other is quite unique to now. I know it happens, and it happened in the past, but it's quite unique to now. When people say, oh, you get more conservative as you get older, it's not quite true. A lot of people who are Labour voters will say to you they've voted Labour all their life. Older Labour voters don't just spin on a dime at the age of 50 and say, oh, I've decided to be a Tory now. What does turn people into Conservatives is wealth. So if you win the lottery, you are more likely. If you win the lottery, the next day you'll probably vote Conservative because you want to keep your wealth. You just become a selfish arsehole. It's one of those weird things, isn't it? You, as someone who's a socialist, as someone who's on the left, I feel like I want everyone to be wealthier. I want everyone to have more money. I want everyone to be more comfortable in their life. I want everyone to be able to do what they want in their life and not be constrained by worries about ending up on the streets, being shoeless and destitute. But at the same time, I know that if the more wealthy we make people, the more likely they are to vote for the wealthy people who want to kick the ladder away for the rest of us. So it's one of those conundrums, isn't it? It's like the conundrum or the paradox of tolerance. If you're too tolerant, if you tolerate Nazis, then you end up having a more intolerant society in the long run. So you're better to be intolerant towards intolerance, and then everyone gets along. If religions get a pass, then people can believe any old nonsense, any nonsense. Sorry, I put the word old in there, yeah. But religions are quite old. Yeah, religions, there you go. That's a whole video in itself. I've gone 2 minutes over time, although I was late coming on today, so I got to let there. I'm 54. I'm more disgusted by the Tories than ever. That's Paul, yeah. I don't see you changing your mind. I mean, like, I'm quite a strong atheist, and I can't see myself having a literal road to Damascus moment where I go, oh, actually, I was wrong about all that stuff. I now believe in. And people who do that, I know there are some who do change their minds, but I always feel like they weren't massively into one thing or the other. They weren't really into atheism. They didn't sort of study religious texts to pick holes in them like what I used to do. They just didn't really care about it up to a point, and then suddenly they became religious. And they go, oh, I'm a born-again Christian. I went from being an atheist to but you didn't go from being like an active atheist. You're a passive atheist, perhaps. The odds of Richard Dawkins turning around on his deathbed and having this deathbed conversion to Catholicism, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But I bet there's a conspiracy that it does. Graham can start selling HughesNauts t-shirts and give me a proper Remainer and have the holy grail of merch. Yeah, smash the like. Accept the leave vote, or you will be responsible for the anarchy. I can't even. I think you're trying to say anarchy, but anarchy that will follow. Well, we've accepted the leave vote, mate. We've left the EU. We want to rejoin. And also, no one respected the 1975 vote to stay in the European community back in like 1975. It was a 2/3 majority to stay in the EU. Super majority to stay in the EU. Didn't stop the Eurosceptics whinging about it for the next 40 years. So, sorry, we're not going to shut up and we're not going to go away. So if it annoys you, I don't know, go find something else to do right now. There are literally a million other things you could be doing with your time. There's a billion other videos on YouTube you could be watching, and not just this one. Describe this anarchy. It's anarchy. It's not anarchy. According to the government timetable, I'm getting my vaccination between 7th of February and 7th of March. Okay, that's good. In time for the first rejoin march on the 13th of March, I hope. Dawkins, what's this? Dawkins can turn in the deathbed. Yeah, I don't think he's going to do that. You pray for forgiveness. I've got a whole spiel about how it's not Occam's razor. No, it's Pascal's wager. Pascal's wager is it's better to believe than not to believe, because if you believe and you're wrong, it doesn't matter. But if you don't believe and you're wrong, you go to hell. So it's better to believe and be wrong, or right, than it is to not believe. That's Pascal. But I've got a devastating argument against that, which I might roll out tomorrow if I remember, because it goes on a little bit. But before I go, because I'm going to have to get going now, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. If you want to subscribe to my channel, which I'd love you to do, because it means that I get more achievements unlocked, like I get, like in Super Mario Kart. Head over to youtube.com/ThatGingerScouser and click on the subscribe button. If you want to support me making these videos on Patreon, head over to Patreon/ThatGingerScouser. And also, if you want to join the Rejoin movement, it's good, isn't it? Head over to rejoineu.uk, easy to remember, and just send me a message, bottom of the page, message thing, you can send me a message. Okay, right, I'm going to love you and leave you, and till next time, I'm going to say hello, good evening, welcome.